Welcome to Liberal Banter with Liz and Olu. On this week's episode, we'll be discussing the upcoming presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. We're also going to be talking about the school shooting that happened in Georgia last week. And finally, we'll be discussing news reports that Russia and the Kremlin were trying to influence the 2024 election by influencing right-wing commentators online, many of whom I'm sure will be familiar to you. But first, we'll start with the upcoming presidential debate. We are recording this on a Sunday. The debate is on Tuesday, so a couple of days away. And Olu, do you want to get us started on this topic? What are your sort of initial thoughts on the debate before we see what happens?
Okay. I mean, I don't know why everybody is hyping this debate on both sides. Because the person we're debating is Trump. The person Kamala Harris is going to be debating is Trump. And my sense of everything I have heard and seen so far is that people are expecting Kamala to be able to do something to, put Trump down or redirect Trump or, make it about policy. But the problem is that people don't understand that Trump does not agree to the rules of reality, period, right? Like, you're not dealing with somebody who is going to agree to any rules of conversation that any normal human being subscribes to. So my sense is that people are making too much of what this debate can be.
I think part of that is because of the last debate and what ended up happening as a result of that. It feels like it made the debates more important from a political sort of campaign perspective, not from an actual presidential perspective. But given that you can draw a line from the first debate through Biden dropping out, it does feel a little bit like the stakes are high. But I also think it's wise for people on the left to sort of manage expectations. I think this should be just yet another debate of someone who knows what they're doing versus Donald Trump. I don't think this needs to be some beat down, smackdown, WWE event, which it seems like the media wants it to be. But I think for most people, it should just be like, this is really going to be a chance to compare both options and make a decision. I don't think it needs to be some smackdown, drawn out, I don't know, is it Perry Mason? Is that the lawyer? I don't think it needs to be one of those like moments in court.
Okay, you're not that old. Jesus Christ, Perry Mason.
Listen, there was an HBO show a couple of years ago, so I'm not talking about old Perry Mason, okay? I'm talking about a guy that was in The Americans that's married to Kerry Russell. He was in a Perry Mason show on HBO. Thank you. I'm not that old.
Fine. I was like, Perry Mason. Yeah, but I mean, that's because I feel like, you're not in the business of, selling ratings and ads, right? So you're not interested in selling it as the WWE SmackDown. Meanwhile, the media is interested in, selling it as this, fight to the death. But let's remember what Trump debating Hillary Clinton was like. Trump was literally stalking her like a predator around the stage. Like, he was prowling around her, right? So this idea that we're going to expect Kamala to go into the debate and be able to wrangle him into actually conceding an actual point, I just don't think that that's going to happen, because he's going to lie the whole time. He's going to yell the whole time. He is going to be ad-libbing the whole time. He's simply not going to engage in what we all understand to be the simple rules of a back and forth conversation. And for that reason, I don't see why anybody is expecting this debate to be, Kamala coming out with point after point. Maybe the muted mics will help. Who knows? But from my perspective, I don't really care how the debate goes, because I don't. It's not going to be like Gavin Newsom versus the governor from Florida, DeSantis, where you could actually see them going point for point, because these are two people who were engaging in an intelligent conversation and trying to make intelligent points. It's not going to be like that. And the problem is that Trump has already spent the last several weeks laying the groundwork for what he wants to do. He's been trashing the ABC News network, trashing them as, liberal DNC operatives, even though I don't think you could say that about cable news, but I think everybody thinks of ABC and CBS News as kind of neutral. So this is kind of already him just lying about what ABC News does. They're not as partisan as some of the cable news, right? So he's already started that. He is attacking the debate moderators themselves. Judge Stephanopoulos, I don't even think that person is moderating the debate, but for some reason he keeps perseverating about that poor man. Like he has already started saying, oh, it's rigged against me. It's the worst network. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. So this is the problem. And I feel like our media are just so poorly equipped to point this out already, to let the public know that this is what this man is doing. Instead, they're setting up this scenario where they expect Kamala to be able to go up to him point for point, where the truth is that's not what is going to happen. And we all know that's not what is going to happen.
Yeah. And I mean, how do you feel about the reports that Tulsi Gabbard is helping Trump prepare, right? Since the expectation I think we have is nothing's going to be different. It's going to be like 2020, 2016 all over again. He's just going to go after them personally. He's going to lie. He's going to refuse to answer questions. He's going to, misrepresent things. So what's all this coverage about Tulsi Gabbard being the one helping him prepare?
Again, just another nonsensical narrative from the RNC and the media. Tulsi Gabbard is a former Democratic candidate who has now become Republican. She had exactly one moment when she went toe-to-toe with Kamala over her prosecutorial record. And at the time, she was pointing out that Kamala has been, a cop and prosecutorial. Well, that political moment has passed. The political capital in that is no longer relevant to today. So I don't see what asset Tulsi brings now, right? Because if Tulsi is just going to point out again that she's always been prosecutorial, well, guess what? Being prosecutorial is in now. So what else do you have? I just don't see how this person is an asset to the Trump campaign in any way or form.
Yeah, it seems like they're just they're trying to put some veneer of respectability around what's going to happen on Tuesday. But for example, we know the debate is not going to include notes. You're not allowed to have any notes with you on the stage. And so I laugh at this because, on a good day with a teleprompter, Trump is unhinged. So I don't actually know what he's going to say with his zero guidance. I mean, he could have even had notes and ignored them. So, we don't know. But I'm just expecting a replay of the first 2020 presidential debate, which I remember watching and feeling just at the end of it, just disgust. It was a feeling of needing to shower. I remember watching this and sort of going in the group chat and being like, we don't need any more debates. Okay. This is the end. If you can't decide at this point who you want to be president, then don't vote at that point. I don't know what to tell you. And I feel like I'm going to leave this debate feeling the same way, where I watched 90 minutes of just disgusting behavior by one of the candidates, and I'm just going to be left feeling disgusted and feeling like this is really the best the Republicans could do. And now there's still a chance this person might win, right? Because I believe the polls are now tied. Like, it's a dead heat, which is insane, but that's where we are. So there's still a chance this man can win. And now we have to sit through 90 minutes of him on TV on Tuesday. Just, oh man, every time I think about it, I'm not excited. I mean, we are going to watch, and we'll be live threading if you're someone who follows us on Threads, because we're not on Twitter. We'll be live threading this whole debate, don't worry, but it just feels like it won't be fun mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically. None of it will be fun.
Absolutely correct. And it is insane to me that no serious person is laying this out the way you have laid it out, right? You're absolutely correct. What does it matter that he is prepping with Tulsi Gabbard? Like, he prepped with Chris Christie and gave him COVID, right? I don't understand what they mean by prepping him. There is no prepping this guy. He doesn't listen to anybody, right? He doesn't follow any instructions. He's going to go up there and do whatever the hell he wants. And that's what everybody should be prepared for. I don't see how anybody can perform against him under those circumstances where, he's just going to be unhinged the whole time. And that's the message I want to, bring across. This is why I was not bothered by Joe Biden's debate performance, not to bring that old colonel back again. But
yes,
on the whole, go and read the transcripts again. Joe Biden actually had some policy points that he made. Trump just rambled the whole time. I'm just saying, on Tuesday, we might have the same scenario or a similar scenario where, because Kamala is trying to be a sane person who is trying to talk like a normal person and communicate like a normal person, and you have a bull in a china shop scenario, it may come across as her being caught in the crosshairs, right? But the problem is that's how that's how being up there with Trump is. Mm-hmm. Just remember that image of him just circling Hillary Clinton like a deranged animal.
Like it was a meme. He was behind her, just because he's also much taller than her, so he was just kind of imposing and threatening in the back while she was trying to answer questions.
Exactly. So I don't think that anybody should go in there expecting somebody to come out on top. It's going to be a horrible spectacle. And I feel like the journalists as well, they always pretend like they can control Trump. None of you can control Trump. Nobody can control him. Please, let's all just accept that. Muted mics, notes, no notes, teleprompter, whatever things you can think of, none of it is going to control this guy.
We will all be here on Tuesday. Fortunately or unfortunately, we will be watching. So let's see. Let's move on from a topic that still has, I think, some level of humor to something that's not funny. I want to preface this topic by saying that we're not going to be discussing. At least I don't want to be discussing the sort of the shootings that happened in Georgia in the context of just guns. What I think is a different angle and a point of discussion is what's happening with the parents in this situation. So for anyone who does not know, which I assume most people do, but there was a mass school shooting in the U.S. this week in Georgia. Unfortunately, 4 people were killed. 2 students and 2 adults were killed in a high school in Winder, Georgia. I think it's Winder, and that's how you pronounce it. The shooter is a 14-year-old. He's still alive, and he was arraigned in court this week. He's a 14-year-old. He used an AR-style assault rifle to carry out this shooting. And we learned this week that he got the gun because he received the gun as a gift from his father over the holidays. So in December of last year, he received this gun as a gift. His father had been told in May of that last year, so a few months before Christmas, he was called in to interview by the police because they were concerned his son was going to carry out a school shooting. The father did an interview with the police, said he would be very upset if his son did that, said his son didn't really have access to guns, so there was no concern. The son said it was made up and his account was hacked, so the police didn't do anything. They couldn't do anything. They let him go. And then in December, the father bought him a gun. And then this week, the third week of school for these kids, the son killed 4 people in his school. What I want to talk about is not just the fact of how this happened, but more about the fact that the father of the shooter is now being charged alongside his son with manslaughter probably for being the one who provided the gun. And it's an interesting new tactic that it seems prosecutors are beginning to take in these cases where they don't just charge the shooter, they charge family members. If you recall, there was a school shooting in Michigan where the parents also bought their child a gun, and those parents were convicted of involuntary manslaughter for providing the gun that their son used to carry out a school shooting. So I wanted to get thoughts on sort of this new angle of potentially prosecuting parents and children who carry out these school shootings.
This is the desperate times we are living in, right? Our politicians and our legislators have abdicated their responsibilities, right? And so obviously we are looking for scapegoats. Now, I am completely disgusted by the actions of this father, and I do think that he behaved recklessly and should face legal repercussions for that. However, it is worth noting that actually Georgia has one of the weakest gun laws in the entire country, right? Including policies that were signed as recently as 2 years ago, allowing concealed carry by the governor, Governor Kemp, who regularly poses with guns in his campaign videos. Georgia does not actually have any law preventing you from giving a minor guns, okay? Doesn't have any laws requiring him to lock away his guns either, right? So this is the problem where the government abdicates its role as a regulator, but it is more than happy to punish a parent instead for abdicating their own responsibilities, but the government doesn't have to take responsibility for anything.
Yeah, and not just the governor of the state, the congressman who represents this district, when he was running for election, he ran ads with guns and talking about how he was going to, protect gun owners' rights to bear arms. And it's, to me, I agree with what you're saying. It seems like it's abdicating responsibility to start charging parents when the people who are in charge of setting policy and rules are not doing their job. I actually feel like it's easier to just say, oh, this is one kid who had he didn't have a great home life. That's not an excuse. I'm just stating as a fact that he didn't have a great home life. There are concerns about his mom, and there are some stories about whether she had some drug issues, and then his father is raising him by himself. It's not a great situation for this 14-year-old to be in. But that is not a reason to do what this child has done. And it's easy for our society to just say, oh, he was a troubled kid with a troubled home life, and that's why this happened. Let's blame the parents. They should have known better. Yes, they should have. But we should also not be in a society where people are buying 14-year-olds guns for Christmas. He's a 14-year-old. Why does he need a weapon that can kill 4 people in a minute? Because that's what happened. Why does he need that at 14?
It's also just so hard to understand the actions of the father, right? Like, he, by his own admission, said his son was troubled. By his own admission, he said his son was being bullied. Like, even if you're not concerned about your son shooting others, what about your son shooting himself? I just find it inconceivable that any father would give a child who you have told the FBI is going through all of this stuff, why you would give that child a gun. And this is another thing that I struggle with understanding the Republican Party, because the Republican Party has so much contempt for its base, okay? Because let's be real, right? The kind of person who is giving their 14-year-old a gun for Christmas is probably the kind of person who is voting Republican, right? Probably the kind of person who is voting GOP. And the GOP has just decided, right, we're not going to make any laws. We're just going to jail the people who vote for us, right? Like, this is what I don't understand about the GOP and the Republican mindset, where they get to punish their own base, right? They punish their own base into dying more from COVID. They punish their own base into living in states where you cannot afford health care. You cannot afford reproductive rights. You're stuck if you need an abortion. They do all of these things, and the base just continues voting for them. I am stunned all the time what they get away with their base.
Yeah, and it's they also punish their voters by having very regressive tax codes. There are so many ways in which they make it hard to exist in societies that they manage, in the states that they run, but people still keep voting for them. You know, they're the party of personal responsibility, I guess. So in the end, you know, you vote for them, they raise your taxes and lower the taxes of high income earners. It's your personal responsibility to know better. You are completely correct. This is going to be a very robust prosecution of this father. They're not going to let this slide. They're going to go after him with everything they have. They're going to make sure they punish him. They're going to make sure they punish this kid. They're already trying him as an adult. They are going to do,
which is another insane thing, right? That you know, a Republican state gets to do, right? Like,
yeah,
they do not have the legal imagination to make laws that prevent 14-year-olds from getting guns, but they have the legal imagination to prosecute a 14-year-old as an adult. I'm stuttering because I'm just stunned.
Yes, it's
by like the gymnastics here, where no, we cannot make laws preventing teenagers from getting guns, but we're more than happy with laws that allow us to, you know, prosecute teenagers as an adult. It doesn't make any sense, and this is why I am forever stunned that anybody votes Republican. I can never cognitively wrap my head around it.
I mean, we know why some people vote Republican, and that's people with money. We know why people with money vote Republican. I don't know why a single father with a troubled kid that needs mental health support and academic support, why a father in that situation would decide the solution is to buy a gun. But in that situation, we don't have any checks. There's no red flags thrown up. This man buys a gun. I don't know if he told when he bought the gun, I don't know if he said it was for his kid. He buys the gun. There's no rule stopping him from buying the gun. His child is using the gun. There's no rule stopping him from doing that. He has pictures of his kid going hunting with blood on his face from his first kill. That's all fine, you know, because I guess we are, you know, hunter-gatherers and we need to teach our young men to hunt. I don't really know. Either way, all of this is happening. The government does nothing. And then when this crime happens, 4 people lose their lives in horrible fashion when they're just going to school. And now we're going to punish the dad and his son. And all the other places, all the other stops, all the other check marks, all the other potential stop signs that were missed and red flags that were missed, nobody gets to be punished for that. It's going to be the dad and the son, and that's it. And then if it happens again, we'll do this all over again. I should say, like I agree with you. I think there should be some punishment for parents that allow this to happen. And I say allow, knowing that not every time parents don't always know what's going on. But in this case, there was clear evidence the dad should have been hesitant to buy a gun. And I do think there should be some punishment here. But like we've said, it's just really interesting that that's the angle they're taking and completely ignoring that there were other things that could have been done to prevent this at a government level that were not done.
Absolutely. It's just, we are the only society where this happens, and our solution to it is even more barbarism by prosecuting a child as an adult, and then also prosecuting the father as well. And then there's this weird disconnect where they're saying, oh, the child is being prosecuted as an adult because he should have known his own actions. But then there's another adult that is also responsible for his actions. And it's like, which is it? Right? Like, which is it? You can't have it both ways. You cannot be prosecuting the child as an adult saying he should have known better, and also prosecute the adult saying that adult should have known better. Like this entire thing is so angry making, and just makes one so like I'm just trying not to despair, because it's clear that the government can do something. It's just that they don't want to do anything until people have died.
Yeah. It's an unfortunate situation. And even in the last 24 hours, in Kentucky, there's a manhunt for someone who bought thousands of rounds of ammunition and a gun yesterday. He bought the gun. It's Sunday today. He bought the gun and ammunition Saturday morning. And by Saturday evening, he had fired at quite a few people on the highway. And now there's a manhunt for him, because you can do that in America. You can buy a gun at breakfast and be a mass shooter by dinner time. That's how we operate now. It's all so unfortunate. It's also why it's important to vote people. But, we're not gonna go into that. Let's talk about the last topic we have this week, which is around the Russian media and Kremlin influencing or trying to influence the election. And let's be serious. They probably already have, right? Because what happened was that an indictment this week was unsealed. Shout out to the New York Southern District, as usual, doing the Lord's work. The Southern District of New York unsealed an indictment this week alleging that there was a Russian operation that tapped 2 Americans to set up a company, and the goal of this company and operation was to fuel pro-Russian narratives by publishing content, so podcasts, news articles, YouTube videos, whatever, that were favorable to Donald Trump and other people that were viewed as pro-Russian U.S. politicians. And so the Russian money was funneled into a company in the U.S. called Tenet Media. And people like Tim Pool, who is a kind of popular right-wing commentator on YouTube and with podcasts, were paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a month as part of Tenet Media. These right-wing influencers and podcasters will tell you that they did not get influenced by all that money. That's what they've been saying online. I feel like we should say that. But the fact is, Russian people, the Kremlin paid Tenet Media, who then paid a bunch of U.S. podcasters who have had some really hot takes on things like the war in Ukraine or the U.S. election over the past few months. And this all broke in the last week and has led to a bunch of scrambling from these podcasters and YouTubers trying to say that they were never influenced. But it's hard to believe that, considering some of them were offered $400,000 a month to create videos.
I mean, clearly we're on the wrong, we're in the wrong business, Liz. But
yeah. Is there like a Democratic version of this? Because I would like a check.
Right.
I mean,
like $100K per week. That's insane.
Yeah.
But this has been clear to everyone for a long time, right? Because there are often stories and angles that have nothing to do with reality. They are not grounded in reality, but those stories get brought up, they get furthered, they're just like marauding migrants, killing everybody. They will put out stories about, transgender teachers just forcing your children to be transgender. I mean, this has been going on for a long time, right? So the fact that the DOJ is uncovering it now doesn't necessarily surprise me.
I mean, I was surprised. I was surprised because I was under the impression that a lot of these right-wing influencers were doing this because that's what they believe, like we do this podcast because we believe a certain way, and that's why we're doing this. And so I thought that's what was happening. I was surprised because, I was surprised for a few reasons. First of all, that it was so blatant, right? This money is coming from Russia. They start this company called Tenet Media. Tenet Media goes and invests in all these podcasts, hands them hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. That was surprising because it's so, it's so clear. The other thing that was surprising to me was that the people who received the money, these podcasters and YouTubers and influencers, apparently didn't know what was happening. That to me was insane because what happened was a US-based right-wing influencer, I believe her name was Lauren Chen. I think that's her name. Lauren Chen, who was friends with people like Tim Pool, came to Tim Pool and said, I have a new media company. I will give you $400,000 a month to make videos once a week. And no questions asked, Tim Pool said, yes, go ahead. Doesn't that sound weird? If your friend woke up one day who you knew of a certain, let's say, financial status, woke up one day and told you that she now had access to $400,000 a month to pay you, would you not ask where the money was coming from? No questions were asked. They were just like, yeah, that's cool. I'll take the money. Perfect. It's dumb. It's just dumb. I can't believe that none of them knew where the money was coming from, or at least suspected.
Well, they didn't want to know, right? But I don't want us to do a thing where we credit the Kremlin and Putin with so much. I feel like it is in Putin's best interest, right? And he's clearly enjoying himself based on some of the comments he made about Kamala Harris today, this week. But it's in his interest for Americans to believe that he is, moving things around and, influencing things this way. The fact of the matter is that the Republican base does already have this transphobic, xenophobic, ideas, right?
Yeah.
I mean, tuning into Fox News and tuning into this people, Fox News is the mainstream company for right-wing media owned by an Australian billionaire. And those guys are being funded by a Russian operative or whatever. But frankly, the messaging is the same, right? There are rapists at your door and, transgender people are coming for your children, right? Like, so there's, to me, whatever the Kremlin is doing, they're clearly just taking advantage of a sickness that is in the right-wing media sphere, and they just happen to key into that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like I said, I thought they were doing this because, they're just real believers, and they are. And then I guess they also decided to just get paid for it. So in some respects, what's different from them, I guess. I don't know if we have if the Southern District of New York has any evidence of the type of content, maybe any evidence of real influence between these two groups. I think if they had, they might have more explicitly sort of called out these influencers when they unsealed the indictment. But it's just another reminder that when you're watching people online, when you're listening to people's podcasts, even ours, although I'll tell you we don't have any outside influence, but when you're listening to people online, we don't have any sponsors. But, just be careful. And this goes for both sides, because obviously people on the right have a known predisposal, let's say, to conspiracy hypothesis and theories. But even on the left, we have seen examples over the last few months of, fake news making its way around. And I think we should all just be aware. We say this all the time. Be careful. Do your own research before you share. But also think through motivations. We are completely independent on our podcast. So thank you for listening to us and continuing to support us. And we will try to remain that way, even if we get really big and get a bunch of sponsors. But not everyone has that same principle.
Integrity.
Yeah. And so it's just something to be aware of.
Absolutely. And it's just something to keep in mind as we go into the famous October month. Clearly, whatever breaking news comes along in the next 1 to 2 to 3 months, screw your brains on and, just think through it. Think about why that story is out. Think about who it benefits before you start making assumptions, right? And hopefully, since 2016, we have all learned that.
Yeah, hopefully, but probably not.
All right, that's all from us, folks. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share with family and friends. Leave us a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps to grow our audience, and we do enjoy hearing from you. Thank you, and see you next week.